Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another gameplay section of Gun in 60 Seconds. This time we're looking at the Type 100. Now, the Type 100, honestly, before I even get anywhere, don't use this gun. There is just really no point. Even if you can get the variation, which I 100% recommend you do, if for some reason you decide to use this gun, is get one of the variants and use that. It's just not a very good gun. It just doesn't really offer you anything. It does do what a submachine gun is meant to do, and it's quite useful up close, and it has a very nice hip fire, and that was probably one of the only beneficial parts of it. But just overall, it just seems so inconsistent. It just didn't really have much damage on it, didn't seem to kill people. Some of this gameplay is quite old, because as I'm playing through, I might pick up a weapon and just use it and get a nice little clipperino with it. But recently, in the past week, I've been trying to use it. It's so frustrating to use because it's, even though it should realistically be a ranged submachine gun, it should be good at range and the best submachine gun at range, like it says in its description. It's terrible at range. Despite the fact it's got low recoil and you'd think, oh, it's basically going to be an ACR. It's terrible. It's got no damage. It doesn't do anything at range. You are outshot by every single gun. The PPSH absolutely destroys it at range. You flinch. You've got no damage. You basically have to make sure that you're playing in a lobby full of scrubs and you've got a good connection, because otherwise you're going to have such a bad time with this. And if you try and use a suppressor at range, well, basically you're just giving people free kills at that point. But yeah, there's the big negatives out of the way. It's just not a very good or consistent gun. It is a gun that if you picked off the floor, it would have some sort of relevance, and I feel like this gun used to be a lot better. I'm really hoping they buff it. It needs a big buff. It needs to be a lot better at range, because at the moment, it is not good at range. It is terrible at range. It just doesn't really offer you anything. The only time I had success was literally getting up into people's faces and hip firing. That was when this gun really started to shine for me. But I suppose I'll stop wasting your time, really, and get into the actual little bits and bobs about it. So Type 100, automatic submachine gun, moderate rate of fire, pretty low damage, no recoil whatsoever unless you're using rapid fire. It does actually do what a submachine gun should do. It's good up close, but despite being a submachine gun that's meant for range, it has no range whatsoever. I really hope they get a buff at some point, because it just needs extra damage at range. It just needs to be a little bit more consistent at range, and it will be actually a viable submachine gun, because the iron sight's pretty good on it. Overall, it just is a nice submachine gun to have in your arsenal. Its damage is just completely outmatched by almost every gun on the game. Divisions, right, so I tend to go with the mountain just because being hidden and being a bit more stealthy about my play, I found to be far more beneficial than anything like airborne would have ever given me. Because airborne, although it gives you that speed up in terms of how far you can run, how much longer you can run, climbing over obstacles quicker, which is great for a submachine gunner, but I just found I was getting caught out because there was lots of UAVs. I might not be doing that well, and it's not really a gun that you can carry with, so you are just finding yourself completely hindered before you even started. So having that little bit extra of surprise just helped me out massively. It's not to say that you can't use the airborne. There might be a few maps in the DLC, there might be a few maps that come later on in the game that will actually benefit an airborne Type 100, or even if it gets a buff, then I would say go with the airborne division. But for now, I think mountain is probably a solid one. You're definitely not going to be hindered by going with the mountain class. You want to be a bit more tactical about how you approach using this gun. Get as close as you possibly can before anyone sees you, because if someone sees you, you're probably going to lose the gunfight, because they probably got like a bar or an FG42 or a Lewis or basically every other gun. Okay, is what I'm trying to say. Long-winded, but yeah, this gun is poor. If it does get a boost or a buff, I would actually say maybe the infantry class. I did try it a couple of times, because if this gun actually becomes very viable at range, it does have that low recoil. It is a very good gun at distance, you know, for like aiming purposes and putting shots into people. It just lacks the damage. So you could go with infantry, which gives you so much strafing ability. It gives you that extra ammo. It gives you an extra attachment. So if you use that with Prime, you'd have 4 attachments for this weapon, which would be great. And you could put something like FMJ on, or a reflex sight, depending on what really floats your boat. And you basically have an ACR if it does get a buff, though. It doesn't, obviously, but it's an example of a class you could use in the future, right? If it gets a buff. which it should do and hopefully does at some point to make it actually a useful weapon. As far as the attachments, lens sight is okay. You know, I think the iron sights are pretty good on this, especially if you manage to get a variant for it. I try and do these gameplays without a variant because obviously everyone's got access to the original model and the variants tend to change slightly compared to what the actual original model is and just in how good they are as far as like iron sights and looks and stuff like that. Reflex is pretty good. I would say that you don't necessarily need it just because the iron sights are pretty good, and if you get a variant, most of the iron sights on the variants are very good and better than a reflex sight, but I can't say you're really going to go bad just because it's got that low recoil and at extreme distances it's very helpful. Rapid fire is great just because of how, although I would say it's not the highest rate of fire, even though it probably should be one of the highest rate of fires in the game. That would probably overcome some of the obstacles that it faces in being one of the worst submachine guns and one of the worst guns in the game. Rapid fire makes it a lot better. Just the amount of more bullets you can eject from the actual magazine really helps you out in putting people down. Advanced rifling is obviously great because it suffers at distance for damage, so getting that advanced rifling is a lot more helpful. I don't think it has a massive impact, but it does seem to benefit slightly, especially at those medium ranges. Grip is okay. If you're running rapid fire, I'd say grip is probably worth going with if you're looking to utilize those long range gunfights. With the class I'm going with, it seems to do quite well at immediate to close distances anyway, so making sure I'm covered at those medium to long ranges is something that I have to make sure that I am equipped with and covered with, which is why I'll go with rapid fire, advanced rifling and grip. Just because that recoil does kick up slightly more than you're probably used to without it, which means that you're obviously going to be a bit more accurate. Quick draw's good, but I think the hip fire's pretty tasty as it is, so I don't really see why you would need quick draw, but it's not exactly a bad attachment. I say this gun, any attachment you put on it is going to make this gun better, but it doesn't dramatically make it better, if that makes sense. Steady aim's okay, but again, I think the hip fire is pretty good as it is, so I don't really see you needing it. I did try it out a couple of times, and it is a bit of a laser once you do put steady aim on it. Suppressors, okay at close to immediate ranges, but once you get to that medium to long range, I wouldn't dare try and use a suppressor until it maybe gets a buff, because it's just not very good. FMJ, again, okay, but I think with a submachine gun, if your aim is to try and get up close, you're not really going to need to use FMJ. Maybe if you had a lot of attachments available, or maybe once the buff goes in, if you were trying to use it like an AR with the infantry division, it might actually work out for you. Extended mags is good. Yeah, just more ammo for your ability, and if you're using rapid fire, obviously that's always a good thing. As far as basic trainings go, espionage, just because if you're hitting people at range and you're not quite getting the kill, you at least mark them on the map for your team to help out, and you know exactly what they're going to be doing and where they're going, and possibly give you intel on where their teammates are. Primed is probably the best one. Just that reduced flinch at ranges is so much more helpful because, well, you are going to flinch when shot at range, and you're going to have a difficult time putting down some people with certain weapons at that range. So any benefits will help you there. Gunslinger might be a good one if you are someone who likes to run around hip firing and being a real run and gun kind of person. It can be very, very beneficial. You certainly won't be caught out in any situations there. And as far as rifleman goes, it's just if you're not having a good time with this gun at distance, always feel free to equip like an AR or something that will give you a bit more distance. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Do try this gun at your own peril. I won't recommend it, but if you want some advice, there it is in the video. Most of the video was spent bashing it, but anyway, hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you want more of these videos, and I'll see you later. Peace out.